right, ladies and gentlemen and work experience students, we're going to learn about habit 5, seek first to understand, then be understood. We're going to do a worksheet for this. You can find the worksheet on Google Classroom. So we're going to take notes as we go. All right, it's not a worksheet, it's notes. Okay, so here are all 7 habits. We started off with the first 3. That was kind of the private victory. You learn to be a more secure, capable person on your own. And then the last 4 are learning to work with other people. So the first 3 are the private victory. So you build your character. So it's like the roots of a tree, right? You become a strong person, and then you can, after you become a more strong person, then you can think win-win, seek first to understand and communicate, so on and so forth. So that's what we're at now, is the public victory here, where you're actually working well with other people to get a better result. And it's, again, part of the maturity continuum. You start as a baby totally dependent on your parents or guardians, and then you gain some independence. You can do things on your own, and then finally you learn interdependence, where you can do stuff on your own, but you realize that you can work together with other people to get a better result, and that's what we're trying to do. All right, so the opposite of what I want you guys to do is seek first to talk, then pretend to listen. All right, pretend to listen in class while you text or play games. Don't listen to parents or anyone else. You already have all the answers. And when somebody does try to talk to you, pretend like you're listening, but really don't take in any information at all. All right, so on your notes, answer these questions. Who is someone that's a good listener? What do they do to listen well? What do they do that makes you? How do they make you feel when they're being a good listener? What is a situation where someone did not listen to you? Answer those on your notes for Think Win-Win. All right, so the idea of what we want to learn is, I want you to seek first to understand, then to be understood. So you want to see things from another point of view before sharing your own point of view. So you listen and understand first, and then talk. Listen first, talk second. So everybody wants to be respected and valued for who they are. So the way that you can be respected is by people listening to you. And in the same way, the way you can show other people respect is by listening to them before you jump in and respond and try to fix problems. People won't expose their soft middles unless they feel loved and understood. So the idea is that people aren't going to open up to you, tell you the full truth until they feel respected and listened to and cared for. So that's part of it. Okay, so now that's what we want to do. Here's what we don't want to do. Here are the 5 poor listening styles: spacing out, pretending to listen, selective listening, only word listening, self-centered listening. Okay, and as we're going to talk about all 5 of the ways not to do it, think about the following. Think about these bad communication techniques in difficult relationships, such as with parents, right? You guys are coming from different point of view, so sometimes there's conflict. With siblings, romantic relationships, your customers at work, your boss. So think about how you communicate with them and how they communicate with you, and think about how they do it bad, but more importantly, how you might do it poorly, so that you can improve. You can't really improve them, but you can improve yourself. All right, spacing out. When someone is talking to us, we ignore them because our mind is wandering off in another galaxy, being caught up in our own thoughts, daydreaming, focusing on things other than the task at hand. So the bad thing that can happen with that is that we don't learn what they are saying, and they don't feel valued and respected. So answer that in your notes. So in your notes, it asks for the first of the 5 poor listening techniques. So write about that. All right, the next bad one is pretend listening. Pretending we are listening by making insightful comments at key junctures like, yeah, cool, oh yeah, that sounds great, and we're not listening at all. All right, so the speaker feels as if they are not important enough to be heard, and again, we don't get the information, and also we don't build any sort of trust or relationship there. All right, that's number 2. Number 3, selective listening. Paying attention to only part of the conversation that interests us, right? So somebody's talking about something, you're bored, and then they say one thing that kind of gets your interest, and then you take over the conversation, and you take the conversation in a totally different direction. So they wanted to talk about that and wanted you to know about that, and you didn't care about that at all, and you went there, okay? So then the focus becomes on you. The other person is not being heard and feels unimportant. They don't want to listen. So you take over the conversation, and then so you're not listening to them, and they don't want to listen to you because you just took over their conversation, right? You just bullied them. All right, so write about selective listening in your notes. Okay, word listening. Word listening. All right, so I'm going to the next slide. So don't miss out on 93% of communication. So when you communicate, only 7% of the communication is words, right? Because you can say all kinds of things, but the body movement, the way your face looks, your arm motion, the tone of voice um, makes a huge difference. So, for example, you could say like, "Hey, nice job, Steve. Good job, man." Or you could say, "Oh, nice job, Steve. Good job, man." Right? So totally different things based on the tone of voice and so on and so forth. So let's go back to this. So we actually pay attention to what is being said, not how it is being said. So you don't pay attention to body language, the tone of voice, the facial expressions, trying to figure out, okay, how is this person feeling? What are their emotions? Um, so you're going to get way less than half the meaning if you only pay attention to the words and aren't paying attention to the context, body language, tone of voice. All right. Answer the questions about that one. Okay. Next one is self-centered listening. So this is seeing everything from our own point of view, right? So it's like, oh, well, this is my life and how I feel about it. And you don't figure out where are they coming from? What's their life like? What are their needs, right? Instead of standing in someone else's shoes, we want them to stand in ours. Okay, so here's the bad thing that can happen from it is so you start judging people like, well, why don't you do it the way I do it? Like, why don't you see it the way I see it? So you make judgments about what is being said based on your perspective. Then you could start giving them advice. Well, here's what you should do this, do that, right? But you're not in a position to give them advice because you actually haven't heard what they're telling you because you haven't heard it from their point of view. And then the other thing is you could, like, if you're like, don't understand what they're talking about because you're not seeing it from their point of view, you're like, might start asking questions, right? And it's like you may not have the right to ask questions because you don't have a relationship with this person. You're not listening to them. You're not understanding things from their perspective. So you don't have the right to judge them. You don't have the right. They don't want to listen to your advice, and they don't want you asking personal questions, right? Okay, so that's self-centered listening. Okay, now answer these questions. Ask yourself, which of the 5 poor listening styles do you have the biggest problem with? Spacing out, pretend listening, selective listening, word listening, self-centered listening, which leads to judging and giving advice that's not wanted and probing when it's not wanted. All right, so which one do you have the biggest problem with and why? That's answer number 16. All right, here is challenge number 1. Try to go one day or a week if you're brave without doing these bad listening things. And like, what are you going to plan to do and what are you not going to do? So that's your challenge for the week. There's going to be a follow-up question for the Monday question. Next, number 18, what poor listening style annoys you the most when you are trying to say something you think is important and somebody's not listening to you? Okay, answer question number 18. Okay, so now here is what I want you to do. So we talked about the 5 things, just kidding, the 5 things that you shouldn't do. Now here is what you should do. Listen with your eyes, heart, and ears. What are they saying? How do they look? How do they feel? Okay, stand in their shoes, try to understand it from their perspective. One way to do this is practice mirroring, repeat them. It's like, oh, okay, so what you're saying is this? Oh, okay, now I understand. So you repeat what they're saying in your own words so that you can, so that you make sure you're understanding them and then they know that you're understanding them as well. And by the way, so there's a difference. There's mimicking versus mirroring. Mimicking is just repeating their exact same words and you're cold and indifferent. Mirroring is you're using your own words and you're warm and caring. One is mocking, the other is caring. Okay, let's go back. Okay, giving feedback. So like giving feedback would be like you want to listen to them, right? And get a good picture of it before you start giving feedback. But when it's time for feedback and giving advice, number 1, do they want feedback? And number 2, do you have the relationship bank account? Do you have the trust with that person to where they're going to listen to you? And ask yourself, is this feedback, is it going to help them or is it just you just trying to butt in and solve a problem, right? Okay, so that's how to do genuine listening. Okay, so um, so now what we're going to do. So now you know what you should do. Here are things that you could do this week that are baby steps towards it. Okay, so pick one. This can be one of your challenges. So this is challenge number 2. See how long you can keep eye contact with someone while they're talking to you. Go to the mall, find a seat, and watch people communicate with each other. Observe what their body language is saying. Try mirroring somebody and try mimicking another, and just see what happens. But pick the right people. Um, Sometime that should be sometime. Sometime this week, ask your mom or dad, how is it going? How do you feel? Um, Practice genuine listening. If you're a talker, take a break and spend your day listening. Only talk when you have to. Next time you find yourself wanting to bury your feelings deep inside you, don't do it. Man, I got some spelling errors here. Instead, express them in a responsible way. Think of a situation where your constructive feedback would really help another person and share with them when the time is right. So, for example, if your friend zippers down and they trust you, like, yeah, to let them know. If they have food in their teeth, let them know. If your friend has bad breath like 3 days in a row, like, hey, man, uh, your breath is bad. People aren't going to like it. Is there anything you can do? Maybe brush your teeth. Sometimes they might actually have like a sore throat or something that's causing it. At any rate, but you don't want somebody going around with terrible breath and making everybody dislike them. So if you're good friends with them, that sort of thing. Okay. All right. Challenge number 2: pick one of the baby steps we just read. Okay, and try to do it this week. What are you going to do? All right, and challenge the final challenge number 3. What is your goal this week for practicing habit 5 using genuine listening? Okay, so in what situation or with who do you need to practice genuine listening? So you got 3 challenges for the week. The Monday question will follow up on how you did practicing habit 5 using genuine listening techniques. All right, that is it. Thank you.